Hello and welcome. I'll do a sound check because I always seem to get it wrong at the beginning. So do let me know if it sounds right, please. But welcome aboard. I can't believe it's been another month. I mean, they're flying past, aren't they? I don't know about you, but wow, this last month has been quite a, I've had a low energy level. So time to really get the energy for the next 2 hours, I guess. So welcome to everybody in chat who has said hello and everybody who's lurking in the background. I've said hello to everybody up to Jeffrey. So hello, Grand Parallels, and loads of letters. Welcome. And Rameson Express, hello from Germany. Grand Parallels. Is it Grandpa Rails? Grand Parallels? Oh, whatever. And then Stephen. So, wow. I hope some of the... Norm told me, the hours changed. Have you changed? And I was like, no. So these are these perilous couple of weeks. We go at the end of March. So for the next month, if you're chatting to someone in America, bear in mind, they've probably changed their hour and you haven't. Hello Timber and Boxcar Jerry, great to have you here. And seeing Timber reminds me, I must thank my moderators, Norm, Digger and Timber. You don't cause them much trouble now, but when we first started, they were really busy keeping everybody in line, all those adult chat bots that seem to have given up on us. I don't know, maybe we're just a bit boring, or maybe actually YouTube has got better at it. But yes, this week we are talking about from concept to reality. I have to say, this was a tough week. I needed to do my room build. I haven't had the energy to do. I did 2 and they took forever. I'm hoping the next ones are quicker because I've done these first 2. And these are basically plating them up for multicolor for people so that they can just print a room if they want. I then had loads and loads to do on stretch goals. What for? I probably have jumped in halfway through the story there. So currently my Kickstarter is live, the MedWing. And the MedWing is part of Ambrand Station, which is a space station. It's grid forged, so it's easy to swap out one tile for another. There's a wall system and there's loads of detailing you might expect in a hospital, a sci-fi hospital. And it's got less than a week left. It's quite a short campaign, this one. I do find the middle weeks just drag and don't seem to add much. In fact, it's been going down and sort of vaguely up and then down a lot at this point, as it often does. So you clear a stretch goal and then you think, oh, am I going to unclear that stretch goal? And that has happened in the past. And then you eventually do clear it again. Quite often the last 3 or 4 days are busy, but to be honest, since I've started, you get most of your money in the first 3-4 days of the Kickstarter, and then it sort of tails off quite a lot. So, loads and loads still to do on the sort of back end stuff. All the modeling's done, all the designs, it's just stretch goals. I've got a couple of things on snagging, but they're really minor. And snagging will be, when I did a test print, I noticed, and they're all stretch goal issues, not the core set, that was all done ages ago. So the video we are going to be looking at tonight is basically my week's modelling. But first of all, Stephen says he was supposed to be working tonight, but he hurt his back again. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Stephen. Backs are delicate things. They often go out and are incredibly painful and difficult when they do. So I hope it mends itself soon. And I can think of quite a few people who've got bad backs at the moment. So yeah. So back to this week. Oh, I've really struggled. The last 2 weeks have been a bit of a nightmare. I've had some really early nights in the hope of getting some energy back, but generally by now I'm drooping. So if I'm a little bit droopy, that's why. But I'm trying to get some extra sleep. It's not really working because the nights I go to bed early, I just wake up at 3. Doesn't really seem to work. So there we go. And I was away last weekend. I went down to visit my dad at very short notice. He was ill. So I took my Xbox down. I was going to work. I opened the Mac. It's like a really old MacBook. And I was just like, ugh. So I spent 3 days playing Satisfactory, effectively. Which, if you haven't played Satisfactory, it's a factory game where you build factories. And it takes a long time to build them. And I keep changing my mind about what I want, which isn't great. So I probably need to get on for a bit. So hello to Polite, who's just shown up in chat, and everybody else who's there. So apart from struggling through the week, I've been thinking a lot about future Kickstarters. At this point, to keep my energy up on this Kickstarter, I normally start fantasising about what I'm going to do next, because I really enjoyed that bit of the process, probably most, sort of what am I going to do, and working it all through. So I have leaked that it is going to be an asteroid. I've got worries about giant brown things, but it'll be Gridforge again, because that's been really great. And I just really like it as a sort of a system. And also it will be mining themed, not factory themed. The Works is coming probably later in the year if the asteroid looks good. And the reason for that is the Works is like it's going to be an industrial district. So it's going to be full of machinery and generators and things you can use in anywhere, some buildings as well that will house them. So interesting things that you could use in any RPG or game effectively, but generally aren't particularly modelled very often. So that's the theory. Are they not modelled because nobody wants them? We'll see. Anyway, I think Norm's hit the nail on the head there. Giant brown things. Yikes. Yeah, that's what I keep thinking. Yikes. So we've had the tanker that Mr. Trump borrowed sitting opposite our village for a while, but it's gone now, says Stephen. Ah, yes, the Russian tanker. Well, yeah, probably had to go somewhere. So I'm going to put on the movie to go, because it's about an hour and a half long, and let it go in the background. Now, when you look at it, you can see that there's not a lot of sci-fi gyms that don't look like normal gyms with neon lighting. That seems to be about the only difference I can see in most people's envisaging of a sci-fi gym, that it's just going to be, a normal gym. So I've spent in my life a lot of time looking at concepts and trying to think about things. And the reason that I'm doing a gym is that, Doug requested it. In fact, I had a few people request it, but maybe it was Doug several times. I don't know. I thought 2 people had requested it at least. So it's a gym physio room, part of a hospital. And you want it to look futuristic. And I really almost didn't want to do it because it was such fine metalwork. If you think of a gym, the poles for a cross trainer, all the things that are sort of part of that gym, they're not the easiest thing to print small. So it's a difficult one. And I was like, it's a stretch goal, so I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on it. I like to spend maybe 2 days on a stretch goal modelling them, then obviously test printing. But that didn't really work. Every time I finished it, the test prints were awful. And it's my own fault. I wasn't on, because I was recording it all, it's going to have been the worst modelling I've done in the last about 3 years, most likely, because that's just how these things work. So yeah. And Doug says, yep, me twice at a minimum. I'm sure someone took the oil. Digger said, wow, Stephen, was it full of oil? I'm pretty sure someone took the oil at some point, Digger. So, Polite, if I may request a T in short form, Pol comes from police. An L in the short form. I'm really, okay, polite. I always just call you polite. Okay. Anyway, so the thing that was cool about Star Trek's holodeck was it could become anything from any time. It was cool, Norm. I also felt they overused it sometimes. Like, I'm not watching Star Trek, so I can go back to Elizabethan sort of, or whatever that one, whatever period it was that Janeway was into, sort of. it was just very bizarre sometimes what they picked. But yeah, I really liked the Voyager who had their own Ming the Merciless sort of thing. But yeah, it was overused at times, but it was a really good concept. So the first thing I decided to do for the gym, thinking about it, was a punch bag. Someone asked specifically for a punch bag, but I can't hang it off the ceiling like the majority of punch bags you might see in the movies. So you can actually get ones for the rest of the world who can't hang them off the ceiling either, for home gyms that go on the side. So I decided to put some writing on it because that looks really boring otherwise, even though it's now looking like the real thing. Oh, I went down I must have tried 5 or 6 different methods to actually get the text to work, because I struggled. I really struggled. I really did. Yeah, there we go. That looks like punching. I think I took the slash out eventually. But, what can I say? And the problem is not the lettering. The lettering's done now. The problem is that you have to make it wider so that, because it won't print out nicely unless it's got a slight slope on it. So we're designing for FDM, not resin. And FDM prints from the bottom up because these are grid forged tiles. And you have to have nothing sticking out. If you have an overhang and the FDM printer prints in midair, you can get some really nasty pieces. Now, it will bridge from one side of gap to the other, but at the moment, Maul, who I was test printing on because he was the one with blue in, and yes, my printers are called Ben and Maul, he wasn't bridging for taffy. He literally wasn't going across even 3 or 4 mil. So I moved over to Ben, and Ben immediately printed a lot better, but wasn't great either. So I had a lot of test prints. You know, you're not going to believe me when I say this, but normally I put something on the printer, test print it, and it's done. You know, first time. This, I'd test print it, change it, test print it, change. Oh, I was so fed up by the end of this week. And I was like, it's probably because I am just fed up this week that it went so wrong. But there we go. That's it. And I've got the history in this bunched up to 264, so I can go back to the beginning again quite a few times. So there we go. So I wanted to talk a bit about basically just the modelling process, because this is what I spend my time doing, and I don't know, I've put it a huge amount on my live stream, and a lot of people will play with Blender a bit, but if you spend a lot of time in it, you may spend a lot of time trying to learn it when you're trying to learn. But if, like me, you're fairly proficient, it doesn't mean you get it right every time. So I looked at this, and it's not wrong, and probably in FDM it would print fine, but it was just bugging me. So I kept trying different methods to try and get it to work. And I won't tell you how many hours a day I spend in Blender, and even now there are still things that just make me go, really? And obviously I'm curving it to go round the punch bag. This was not fun. So in chat, it was sitting quite high in the water, so it looked empty, says Stephen. Yeah. I thought it had offloaded. Police light, is it blue and attached to a box? Stephen, someone must have swiped it already. Yes. Named for old Ben Kenobi, not the owner of Second Dynasty, says Doug. Oh yeah, so Ben and Maul, arch enemies. They have a competition about who can print best. You know, and Maul is always like, moaning about Ben. It's quite disconcerting, really. Yeah. I've actually done nameplates for them to go on a video about multicolour printing. I still haven't done the video. So, yeah, I really need to get some energy. I don't know about you, but this is always a fairly low point of the year, isn't it? You're coming out of winter. Spring is springing, but it hasn't really sprung yet. And, yeah. But I really am just feeling it a lot at the moment. So, here we go. So, where do we go? Polite, thanks, Digger. I'm quite well. Physiotherapy the other day hasn't worked as well as expected, but who cares? Ooh, so I hope it gets better soon. And then Slurgical 3D terrain channel, pretty cool. I haven't played with text in Blender yet. It's actually really simple, but I'll give you a couple of things that I've found One, this won't go around the circle because it's straight line, so you have to dice it up into sort of sections so it will bend. It doesn't come out with beautiful faces, so I often hit beautify faces. And I've never had much luck with using its extrusion. I always just bring it out as a flat piece of 2D and extrude it myself, convert it to mesh and then work on it. And then I can play with the sort of vertices as I wish. I mean, it is fairly easy to use. I use custom fonts as well so that I can get my sci-fi look. See here I'm playing around with trying to make it easier so that when I do the bevel there's fewer things to go squiffy when it bends, and then when I do the Opt S, which is Option S, which makes it bigger in the same sort of each area gets bigger from the next without just skewing off, because if you were just to make everything bigger it kind of skews. It's not a simple thing, whereas Option S skews it relative to the face above like this. If you just did a normal scale, which is what I'm doing, it would go really bad. I've done it enough times to have learned the hard way. So Stephen says Dawn Quest issued us a scratch build challenge. Still trying to think what to build. Definitely up for it though. Were there any rules to it, Stephen? Timber says I think that process may be easier in CAD. I think it's how your brain works. I think it's easier for you in CAD, Timber, because you've always worked in CAD. I've never worked in CAD, really. So for me, my brain works in Blender, and I actually find this really easy. I understand it. It is easy for me. And this is just mucky because I think when the text files come in, it's something to do with the text files, to be honest. Some text files are better than others. There we go. Oh, and Kaiserzak, welcome. And he's joined ground cover. So thank you, one of my patrons. Hey, you'll get a welcome email tomorrow when I write it. Doug says, Professor Slicer is pretty good at adding or subtracting text these days. It probably is. It's this bevel that is always the issue, trying to get the bevel on it. You'll notice I do it in all my text. It's on all the MedWing, building text, etc. And it is about making it just look smoother on the print. It makes it harder to paint, obviously, but it is just smoother on the print. Timber, number one rules equals no 3D printing. Lol. Yeah. And sadly, when your job is doing these things, you think you'd get faster at it. But I wasn't on the ball this week, as I said. So, I'm on my second cup of tea of the evening, though. With my Star Wars mug. That was a Christmas present. The lightsabers light up when it's hot. Now, I model everything in two sizes. Full size for my Legion minis, and then 80% size, which is 28mm, which is a more common size for RPG and minis generally, though Warhammer is now probably about Legion size. So I end up thinking when I model it, and I often model in the 35mm scale, I often end up thinking, all right, this has to shrink down. So everything I do is often at 1.6 or something, so it can shrink to 1.2, or it's at 1.2, so it can shrink to 0.8. Those don't quite work in maths necessarily, but I can round it out. And that's because a line in FDM is 0.4, but a 0.4 line on its own won't print vertically particularly well. You'll be fine if it's just a wibble up and down a face, like a vertical face, but if you're trying to print a 0.4 line, it will do it, but some printers are not that great at it. And I have to design for everybody's printers, for the good ones as well as the bad ones. So it's, not gonna help. I just saw this, that's gonna hurt when you punch it, says Jeffrey. I envisage you'll paint it to look soft. Oh, right. So, right, Timber, no 3D for Dawn Quest challenge. Yeah, see, the last time I did a scratch build challenge, I spent a lot of time thinking I could have just done this in a 3D print and I would have been happier doing it in a 3D print and I would have been happier with the outcome in a 3D print and I would have had it better. So actually I won't do scratch build challenges anymore because I don't scratch build. I design 3D prints and it's just so much quicker for me to do it in a 3D print and I'm still designing it. It's a different skill set, but I'm still designing it. So yeah, it's a I mean, I love people who can scratch build. It's just really something that I think I've lost the art of by being so much time on the computer doing this. And I just look at it and I can be so much more accurate doing this. I'm actually very inaccurate in this. I just do it by eye a lot because it's gym equipment. But normally I'm doing everything to 0.1. I'm literally making sure every single thing is to a set amount. Every time I do a move, I do it to a set amount. So I use it almost like CAD to get that. But it's the only way you can get Blender to be really exact is to dial in every single movement that you do. So that's punching bag. Sorry, kind of slow today. Oh, Norm, don't. So punching bags normally hang, I know, but we have no ceilings, so I had to do it from the floor. And I googled and you can actually buy them for home. So they are a thing. So timber, it's just scratch, preferably from household items. The last time I did that, I had a mechanical griffin that somehow ended up as a fantastical griffin and I really hated it. So yeah. Timber says, I can scratch build, but if I CAD it, I can have multiple instances and share my effort with others. That's a good way to look at it. You can cast things from, and actually with the way scanning is going, you may eventually be able to scratch build, scan and share, which will be interesting. No prizes for guessing what this is. So the trick with this is making it printable. It's very easy to do a set of weights. It's about making sure that when you come, there's no real overhangs so that the weights are supported. Circles are a nightmare. You will realise this whenever you try and design something, I know. It's just, they're flat, top and bottom. And you'll see this. I went down a rabbit hole with the cross trainer and the treadmill, started with the treadmill, because I wanted to do curves, because it's sci-fi. Sci-fi doesn't do straight lines when it can do a curve, right? And as a result, yeah, it just didn't bridge because the top of a curve is flat. And I thought it would work, but yeah, it didn't. So that's quite a lot. Just because you can scan does not mean you can mould or 3D print the same. That's true. No, that's obviously a weight rack. Yep, it is. But there's two different shapes of weight because I really thought the hex ones looked more sci-fi, but I'd started the round ones. Doug says you might have been able to reuse the meat locker concept for hanging bags, but it probably wouldn't look great. Yeah, the trouble is I hadn't got that set of walls in this Kickstarter. I also didn't do any lockers for the gym because I did a set in the last Kickstarter that you can just use. So if this unlocks, I will be tempted to add those in and just say to people, you know, here's the lockers. They're a stretch goal in Outbound. So if you've had it, you've already had it. But if you haven't had it, here they are. So yeah, and one of the joys of 3D printing is having designed this, I can just double it up so you can get two on there, which means you can get two racks next to each other for the price of one. So you have a bit of an option. Now this is only supposed to be a couple of days modelling, so I picked 4 machines. A punch bag, that's not a machine, I know, 4 items. A punch bag, a weights, and a cross trainer and a treadmill. And a weight machine, so that's fine. And I've got to say, I feel like I probably should have stopped one short. I really struggled to get the weight machine to print. The bigger one was fine, but the smaller one just kept having loads of print errors. And I have no idea whether the part cooling fan is just slightly on the blink on wall. But then, so I put it on Ben, and he definitely has had a part cooling fan issue. And I've rejigged his the way it's plugged in inside, and he hasn't had it since. And I put it on Ben, who's obviously older but different printer, and it had the same error, and I'm like, I don't understand. And I just wasn't feeling like my brain was computing on why nothing was working this week. So Norm says lifting weights with the artificial gravity turned off would be easy. It would. One thing I'd like to do, and I didn't do it for this, but I would like to do a 0G swimming pool and make it out of something. And this is what I can't work out, how to make it out of a 3D print, because translucent prints aren't thin enough to be see-through, or clear enough really to be see-through. And I'd like it if you could have people inside, so you could put like your scuba clones or stuff swimming inside this 0G sort of bubble of water and have a swimming pool. But I just can't work out how to print it. So if anyone's got any ideas how you could 3D print a bubble, sort of oddly shaped bubble, not a round bubble, but a sort of blobby bubble, you know, because surface tension's being distorted by the people swimming around inside. A blobby bubble of water in mid-air, yeah, obviously, for a swimming pool, a 0G swimming pool. And please let me know, because I just can't think how to do it. Doug says, still a strain to start them moving, then another strain to stop them. True. The mass remains and inertia can hurt. You might just end up flying into the wall with them if you've got them going, I suppose. Now, treadmills. I've run a lot on treadmills in my life. I didn't go to a gym for about, I don't know, 10, 15 years. Probably 10, 15 years ago. And I don't think the machines have changed much in that time. I never really used the pulley weight machine, and this was a very simplified version. But I have used a treadmill a lot, and I know they don't always go uphill, but this one goes uphill. So you guys will get an extra workout because you're going to have to go uphill as well. Norm. Oh, Doug, don't spoil it with giants. Yeah. Oh. So, whilst this is going, if anyone's got any questions about Blender, I spend a lot of time in Blender. I can't promise that what I will tell you will be right or the easiest or the best way, but I can definitely tell you how I do things in Blender. And one thing with this, I probably should have kept an earlier version saved. Sometimes I copy them and then just start reworking. So that I've at least got an older version. But this I wanted to change later, and I just ended up redoing it vertex by vertex really, because I'd locked some stuff in early that I then wasn't happy with. Kaiser's out. Hi Kathy, no CAD experience? Pretty impressive. Thank you. I don't think CAD is necessarily for what I do, but it certainly probably would help. I don't know any creators that do 3D print terrain. People will come up and tell me opposite now, that started on the CAD side. I think most of them started on the sculpting and arty side, but I was an accountant for 25 years. I always did arty stuff in my spare time in my hobbies, so it's all self-taught, which is probably the best way to be, I think, for some of these things. It's quite a new thing, all of this. So there's not a lot of sort of experience that people can look back on. It didn't exist as an industry even 10, 15 years ago. So, yeah. Stating the obvious, 0G water is very hazardous. The surface tension will stick it to you as a second skin. Yeah, I just think that's why it would be scuba clones. Yeah, scuba gear should help. And this is where I went wrong. That curve in the middle, I thought it looked really good. And I thought to myself, oh, you know, I haven't been bridging well. I don't like to leave long bridges. This could be quite a long bridge. It was about 12, 15 millimeters, which is a bit longer than normally I'd let it just bridge without some kind of support in the middle. obviously I can't do because your legs are there. So I thought, oh, I'll curve it so that the top bridge is shorter because it comes in. But what happened in reality was it just never liked that curve at the top. It never printed it properly. I don't know. I mean, 3 days later, I come back and take the curve out. Spoilers. So while this is going, I'm going to talk about my next Kickstarter as well as this one. So MedWing is on its last few days. It finishes Thursday at midnight GMT because I have no idea about time zones. It actually finishes at 11:59 because I'm never sure which day midnight is in. Like, is it the start of one day or the end of the other day? And I'm always nervous that I'm going to lose a day if I put it at midnight. So I always do 11:59. So it's definitely an interesting debate, and whatever. So on this particular Kickstarter, we've still got 2 stretch goals, and this is the to go that I've done, and this one is the one after. Someone asked today, am I going to release it? I will release it at some point, but not just straight to shop. I'll probably put it into, I don't know, a future Kickstarter of some sort. I want to do a nice little landscape, so when you're running, you can see your landscape. This is done by, you set it to UV, so that you can manipulate the picture with the UVs, which is basically how Blender works for displacement. And I put a displacement modifier on it, and I'm able to go in and just use a picture to bump out. And it's it's one of those free pictures you get online that's copyright free. And basically bump it out, smooth it off a bit. You have to do that manually because the bumps are all uneven. So I smooth it a lot into 3 or 4 layers, and then you can see the picture there. And I can pick which bit of it I want because I've done it on UV. If you use just normals or whatever the normal way Blender does, it's a nightmare because it will tile it. You can't manipulate it at all. People say, oh, do a plane object, do this, do that. I've just found it far easier to UV edit, and I can then just go and move it in the UV editing section. So I can put it in something really complex like this really simply. Timber says, I come at models from a different direction as a CAD engineer and struggle with organic shapes. Depends what you're designing as to whether sculpting or orthographic software. Yeah, one of the reasons I got out of railways into sci-fi when I went into 3D printing as a job was that it's a lot more exacting to get it right, and I didn't want to become a CAD engineer, and a lot of what people want in railways is very exact. So yeah. So Slurgical 3D Terrain says, I started on the iPad with Shaper 3D doing sci-fi terrain. Can get away with it most because it's industrial and hard surface. I have to admit, being self-taught, and I really struggle with Blender. So I started with Blender back in 2.8, or just before the UI changed in 2.8. And it was right click to select. It was all, it was like 100 times worse than it is now. And then they changed the UI and it became a lot more user-friendly. But it is a case of you probably only use about 3% of Blender in anything that you do. I'll use the same techniques every time. I actually did try these. I hadn't done these before. It's just a vertex to circle. Loop tools will do the same, but I just didn't find loop tools as good as the version. That's loop tools, that version. I've got a version that I got from one of my add-ons, and I think that's the thing with Blender. Vanilla Blender is okay, but as soon as you start using it full time, you'll end up adding on a number of add-ons that will enable you to do some really useful things short. So you'll look at the way I do this, and if you're just used to using Blender, you'll notice that I have a lot of shortcuts. And that, I think, is the problem with Blender. You have to learn the shortcuts for it to be effective. And a lot of people just don't use it enough to remember them. I have other software I can't remember anything. But I use this every day. So that's why it's easier for me. The more you use it, the better you get. It doesn't mean I do it the most efficient thing. And sometimes I'll go through Instagram tips and let them, just tell me what I should be doing. It's yeah, I don't know. I just go, wow, I should use those more or something. I spent a lot of time doing stuff here that I then deleted. So, yeah. Station says, there's a fun scene in Passengers where the gravity failed and the swimming pool water floated away. Yeah. Oh, bless. I've seen that film and I don't remember that. It shows how much I was paying attention. Slurgical says, I do find myself doing a lot of hard surface in CAD, then move it to Blender, continue. It's mainly because of workflow. Yeah, I start in Blender because that's just everything. I can understand how CAD would be good if you were doing things wanting a blueprint. I mostly start with a cube or a cylinder. 99% of my modelling is cube or cylinder, and that's just how it works. I do sculpt some stuff. I have a pen pad. I rarely do it. I would rather use a displacement map to put a rock texture onto a vertex distorted sort of shape that I've managed, and then put a rock texture on it. Then I would sculpt that same thing. And the reason for that goes back to my first ever Kickstarter. And I had this desert ring, and where I sculpted it, it inflates the size of it. So when I flip it around, you'd like to be able to do that, so you could maybe do an S. It doesn't quite line up one side to the other, and yet it was an identical size, and it's a very small texture, just to do with the expanding out that texture. So I pick a displacement map because I can pick a midpoint of 0.5 and know that I'm only coming out half of whatever figure I dial in, and I can still do my clearances. And that, I think, is really important when you're doing something that has to match up and tile and maybe flip and mirror. So I've tended to use a lot more displacement maps. Now, if I was really in it all the time, with it, I'd be using procedural nodes, which are effectively the same thing. You can put things on, but it's a level that I haven't really got past. Yeah, this is still all about this. None of this makes it to the final result. Very topographical, says Norm. Yeah. Slurgical, have to fix topography from CAD once in Blender. Yep. Hello, Edscar. Hello. Edscar. Blender. I tried to learn it once. I went through several tutorials and never got very far because my version wasn't behaving how the tutorial showed. Yeah, there are out of date. If you're going to start and you just want to start somewhere, you really should start with the donut tutorial. 99% of people do the donut tutorial, I think. I have my donut somewhere. And he updates it for all the different versions of Blender, so there's always an up-to-date version. And he actually did displacement maps in one of them, but then decided it was too complex, so I don't think it's in my latest version. But I love displacement maps and some of these other tools, but I mostly do hard surface. The trouble is, when you do rock work, you can blow Blender apart. I used to have 40 gig in my old Mac, and I upgraded it to 64 gig back when gig was cheap, and it was okay. It stopped it crashing all the time when I upgraded to 64 gig from 40 because it was crashing all the time. And then I kind of got a new Mac and I've got 128 gig and I have no problems with Blender now. But 128 gig is a lot of gig to have just to get Blender to work. And this is where, if I do rock faces, if I put too much texture in, it's just so much. And Blender, it doesn't do well with huge volumes of vertices, points. So it gets really upset. And that is where some of the issues have sort of come about when doing things. So then you lock them in and decimate them, which makes it harder when you then want to go back and change something. Anyway, this is me putting a curve in because I really felt that Sci-fi stuff has curves. It's the truth. There's no straight lines in sci-fi. Yeah, Ed says, couldn't complete the donut. Use this brush to raise this area. Clicks to raise area. Click again to raise further. Doesn't raise anymore. Alt mode on brush to lower area. Works. Click again to make deeper. Doesn't go deeper. Okay. I mean, sculpting, that sounds like sculpt mode, is very additive. So you have to go over the same area many times with your brush or mouse to get it to raise. It's just multiple times over it. I should sculpt more, is always my view, but I don't. Don't when I should. Interesting. I'm not even going to try and work out what Blender is doing. It does raise up for me, but sometimes Blender just gets weirdness that you can't work out. I look at this and I go, wow, you really weren't having a good week, Kathy. There were so many blind corners I went into and never got out the other side of with this. And yet some bits that look really complex, like the landscape, 5 minutes modelling almost, really simple. Bits like the curve should be simple. Nah, it just never printed right. This is me checking the width, and I've left them attached for robustness in the print. So it looks solid from the side, but it will print on a lot more printers because of that. Doug says, I was trying to print a dice container. It wouldn't load into Slicer. Found out the file was 6 GB. 4 trillion faces. Wow. Yeah, I'm guilty sometimes. I didn't decimate this landscape, and I should have, because I put quite a lot on vertices. So it does bump the file up, but the rest of the file's like, I don't know, 60k. So it's, it doesn't really worry. I think it goes up to 5.6 meg or something. Ooh. So while this is going in the background, you will notice a lot of me going in and checking it. Why am I going in Pressure Slicer? Well, I just find that the warning lights come up better in Pressure Slicer than anywhere else. So if there's any print errors, I find them really easy to spot on the Pressure UI before I slice or anything. So I just bring it in. If it has a red triangle, I fix it. If it has a black triangle, I fix it. If I was doing it for myself, I'd probably just try printing at that point. But because I'm doing it for sale, I don't want any triangles coming up on my models. So if you take a model like this, that's one of mine, into another slicer and it gives warnings, it doesn't give warnings in Prusa, or it wouldn't have passed the test. Occasionally I get told off for floating regions. I think the handles on my kitchen pots sort of flag as floating regions in Bamboo Slicer. But yeah. Norm says, Kathy, how long did you work on this treadmill? Well, the actual elapsed time. I did it on and off for 4 days. Not just the treadmill, all of it. The actual elapsed footage was 7.5 hours, shrunk down to 1.5 hours. So there's a lot of treadmill because, there's a lot of cross trainer too. There's a lot of repetitiveness. And I think this is the thing to realise. I put this here, it looks fine. Many designers do not test print. They do not. You look at it and you go to print the files that they give you and they do not line up. They have walls that are in the way, clip holes don't line up. They haven't test printed them. Now, like me, sometimes they may have test printed an early version, tweaked something and caused a problem later on. But there are plenty of designers out there that design and it looks good and then they do not actually test print. And that can cause real issues. So every single thing that I do is test printed. And it's a good thing I do because this really needed test printing several times. So Slurgical says, Ed, Scar, keep on trying. I really struggled, but you'll have those little wins and eventually you'll succeed. I thought I was going to be stuck on CAD forever. Edgar, I use many forms of CAD, and Blender is the only one I couldn't use to a basic level within 30 minutes. Tim says, me too, Edgar, but then I have been doing CAD for 35 years, so a bit entrained in the principles. Yeah, I think if you have to think a different way for Blender. Blender is all about vertices. It's not about CAD, and I think this is the trouble. People try to apply CAD to it, and I do to some extent. You know, everything I do, I always move with an X, Y, or Z coordinate on it, so I know which direction I'm moving in. You know, people come across from CAD, it's a very different beast. But if you go to ZBrush, that's different again, and people who use ZBrush can't necessarily cope either. So loads of sort of different systems to suit different styles, and that's good. Pick one that suits you. It's normal, says Surgical. If not, we're both broken. Lol. Trust me, until a couple of years ago, I never touched 3D and zero skills. I think that's it. Everyone nowadays is, you know, a lot of people do it at school. We didn't have 3D design, really. I went to a girls' school. We did home ec. We learned how to sew a kimono. My mum still has it. Yeah, you know, I learned how to make a scone pizza. I've never made one since. Yeah, it was useful stuff. But anything technical? No, didn't do it. Nice. I learned my first program, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. I probably only really started using 3D programs when I got into 3D printing, which was 2018, perhaps. So yeah. Autodesk Inventor, Design Spark are the ones I've used a lot, but it's probably used maybe 10 different programs. So I tried Fusion 360, which is free, which is the Autodesk offering in this space, and it's free for hobbyists, but they kept limiting more and more and shoving everything into the cloud, which isn't how I want to work. And I'd have to pay, I think, for the amount of models I do now. I don't think that way. I tried it. I really struggled with something that I could do in 10 minutes in Blender when I started in Blender. So yeah. Slogical says, I started with 360, brilliant program, but I'm disabled, so I have limited tolerance behind a desk. So I got Shaper 3D on the iPad. That's good. iPads, I mean, yeah, they're good. Oh yeah, Fusion 360, I use that at the moment. Annoying with the restrictions. It really is. It wasn't locked down like that when I first started with it, but yeah, I couldn't use it now for a business. You just don't even know if it's going to exist. So one of the problems with the cross trainer, which we're now on, it uses the same uprights as the treadmill, and it didn't print. That upright did not print. It was floating, which I caught before. Oh, did I catch, or did it just not print? Anyway, it was in midair. Let's just put it that way. It didn't print, and what I'm doing at the moment with these weird bits underneath is making a 45-degree slope in, so this will print. You cannot print that overhang in midair. It just won't print. And these are Darkfire Design Legion minis. I use them for scaling because I don't really do minis, so I always use them for scaling. And yes, this is a massive machine, I think, when I look at it there, but it's immersive. It's supposed to be a sort of surround sound, so when you get on it, you get this feeling that you're part of this big display and all that kind of stuff. It's logical. The restrictions made me go away. I did pay full for 1 year, but couldn't afford it. Oh, I'm not paying for that when I can use Blender, which I enjoy. So, I mean, I don't always enjoy Blender, but the one thing about Blender is so many people use it because it's free that there's always a video on how to do something if you get stuck. So I just watch a lot of videos if I get stuck. I want to do icicles all over places randomly. There's a video. I have to learn procedural nodes, but hey, there's a video. You know, there's always things you can learn. So Slurgical says, I design now terrain and loving it. I do love terrain because it is very freeing, and you can do, you know, you can do sort of so much with it. it's the appeal of being able to just create your own miniature world, I guess. So Doug says, can't print mid-air without adding support, which I'm glad Kathy's work doesn't need. Yeah, I'm always support free. The only thing I will say for this, Doug, is although the cross-trainer poles, I tried printing them attached. I knew they wouldn't print well. So I separated them and printed them, forgetting to hollow out one of the holes. But anyway, and I knew I'd end up redoing them again, and I did several times. And they do go in and stay in, but I would glue them personally. So this, you see, is the size of the 35mm one. And it goes down to that end. You need Arachne to print it to fit in, which is fine, well and good. This then on this side is the size of the 28mm one, and it's so fine. And they just weren't printing upright like this. So what I did was separate them and put them flat. That does not look flat. Flat. And now they will print far more strength in them because of the way the layer lines work. And this is something you really have to understand. I see people who don't 3D print not understanding this. If you want to snap a print, snap it on a layer line and it will just snap. So if you print anything which has a flat base and a pole sticking out of it, that pole will knock so easily off and it will snap. No matter how good your printer is, there is a layer line weakness. You can do things like beveling the bottom and, you know, making it stronger, but at the end of the day, it's still probably going to snap. As things get higher, things get more wobbly. And these poles, very thin, they are more likely to wobble. And as they wobble, they get uneven and they look messy. So but to print on the side, you have to flatten one side. So actually, the handles on these get flattened on one side, which is the inside, and you have to then put them flat. And then you have to work out how to attach them into something that's only a mil across or a couple of mil across. So it is quite a pain. So I don't know why I picked cross trainer. This is why I didn't want to do Jim's Doug, because of doing these fine things. So Norm says that is a very large machine, very intimidating. It's a sci-fi surround sound machine. You know, you actually, I always think cross trainers feel very large. So this does. If you think the large one is too large, you can always print the smaller one and put a bigger mini on it and make it look like it's a temporary home one. The good thing about the two sizes is there are always two sizes. Slurgical, Artisan of All really helped me to learn Blender. I've seen his YouTube videos occasionally come up, but I've never really watched them. But it's great if you found someone that will help you understand it, because people talk in different ways. I followed Blender Bros a lot when I started. They've gone very, very pushy marketing now, but you know, when I started, and they did some excellent videos on how to model. I watched a lot of them. So Doug says, have you considered making your GridForge compatible, Doug? Slurgical. And yeah, I mean, I think GridForge is excellent. And then, sorry, Kathy, says Doug. What are you apologising for? Anyway, I thought about it. Oh, the gym. Yeah, I know. I knew, but, you know, you're special, Doug, so I did it. Slurgical. I thought about it. It might make a version to fit it, but I aim for fast game setup. I'm currently working with Hex and testing it out. Hexes I find frustrating. And you know why? As a designer, a hex is not a square. It is not equal in every direction. So if you want to put a tiling hex on a square tile, it does not tile equally when you rotate it. It's directional. And that really, really bugs me, because it means your tiles are handed, but easy to get into the wrong place. So it is a real pain. So I actually prefer octagons, which are symmetrical in every direction. Ravenson, you can print the handlebars separately and you can add a radius at the base to make it less easy to break. I did print the handlebars separately in the end, Mac. So yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, I tried it just for ease to see how well they came out. I kind of always knew I was going to. But adding a radius, at some point you still come off it, and it's still just about, these are very delicate. I've got rockets on ships, and I always wish people would make them separate. I'm like, why would you do that? And I would put them on magnets or something, you know, because you just knock them off all the time. Trailblazer, I'm thinking of here, Doug. I did the Trailblazer, and it was a nightmare. Surgical. I know supports are not an option for you, says Ravenson. No, I don't do supports. My whole ethos is support free. So it does make it harder. Surgical, lol, I know, really frustrating, but trying to make it work might fail. I haven't played with, been working mainly on 6x6 inch tiles. Yeah, I've decided the oct square method is the way to go now on things where I need to. This is actually oct square on the floor. And it's it still looks sci-fi, but it's just easier to tile and print. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm more awake than I think I was in bed by this time last week. Yep, I was already in bed by now. Do you know, it's almost embarrassing. This is the worst modelling I have done in, like, whatever. The core set was all done ages ago, before I had my brain moment where I couldn't even remember how to do a decent thing. See, those handles aren't actually attached. So it is effectively, so the foot pedals aren't actually attached on the inside. So that brace is just in midair. Oh, it was daft. Anyway, yeah. So, Kathy Millett, you are a legend here. Thank you, Canadian Shield 9mm. Thank you. Legend in their own lifetime. Impressive. So, by the way, Kathy, I'm a huge fan of your design and terrain. Thank you for sharing your talent and doing what you're doing for gaming. Oh, well, thank you. I love it. I really enjoy it. I tried Star Wars Legion for a long time, and I have to admit, wargaming, it's partly you have to go somewhere to do it. You have to find people to play with. I really didn't enjoy it as much as, I'm not that competitive, but I don't want to lose all the time. So and then I wanted to try an RPG, which is a different type. And everyone says, oh, there isn't as much terrain for RPGs. It's not such a big market. RPG stuff doesn't do as well as, say, Legion stuff, all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because I went into sort of terrain and did a lot of Star Wars Legion style stuff. Now I think Gridforge is more RPG, and it's actually doing a lot better. So I think that's interesting. But it is what I really like about RPGs, and I ended up GMing one, which Doug and John are both part of. They're my players. And I was really limp this week, bless. I could have described the ship full of horrible creatures with great aplomb, and I'm just like, yeah, there's a ship with creatures in it. There we go. No, well, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So anyway, the RPGs, you don't actually need terrain for, but I do think Gridforge is more aimed at that. And I always play online, but I do prefer it. It's more collegiate, and I just prefer that style of game where you're telling a story rather than trying to kill each other or loads of little people. So I enjoy it a lot more. So having found my way through several things, I'm really happy now in the sort of arena of sort of RPG terrain. Oh, Norm, Kathy is printing as a solid mass easier than printing pieces to be put together later. Well, that is a good question, Norm. And for these, I thought that they're only 1 by 2 inch. I thought for the hassle that they are, I would just do them in one place. Because how do you attach such a small piece? Nothing, it's hardly printing anyway. Trying to print little catches on it is just not going to happen for those cross trainer poles. I could put a giant supporty clip on, but I've then got to clip it into something which is got to be at least 3 or 4 mil wide at least, and probably 7 or 8 mil long to get it in. And that's a huge piece. Even with supporty clips, you can do smaller clips, but they don't work as well, and then things fall out. I've downsized supporty clips for the arms on the bed, and once they've been in and out a few times, they're not that happy necessarily. I did the first set, weren't at all happy. I redid the second set with a chunkier supporty clips, and they work better. So I'm probably thinking of the earlier ones that I've still got on my thing upstairs, and every time I look at them they fall off. I'm like, that's why I changed you. Some people want one piece, some people want variety. Now the weights machine was a typical one where I thought to myself, should I do this on one of my clip bases and do the sides as print flat on, and then just clip in? And I thought about it a lot, but I just wanted it to be a print in place piece for this. And this is what we're doing now, the weight machine. So I wanted to be able to people just pick them up and print them and put them on the table effectively, not have to worry about clipping and printing extra pieces and working it all out. And it probably just me. I mean, this is just a normal chair, and I took the arms off for the desk. I changed all my chairs several times, the same base chair. And actually that chair is Maul's chair from Scimitar. I'd already designed but never released. It's for my Scimitar. And I've reused it all the way through here. And it's on grooves, rails in the floor, which is why I've got 2 grooves underneath. But what I didn't do in Maul's, which I'm going to go back and add in when I go back to the Scimitar, which is a personal project because it's too close to IP to sell, is I didn't put any supporty clip holes in, and I will go back and add them in because the chairs just, they sort of stay on the rails, but with a clip they stay really nicely. So the question is, depends what you're printing, Norm. This machine, that front edge there prints in this scale. It does not print in the smaller scale because it just gets too small, and my machines kept knocking it and breaking it. So if I was doing this, I wouldn't be able to inset the weights. They'd all have to be flat on one side. So you always need a flat side if you're going to print flat. But this would have been ideal to do in multiple pieces because of that top across. But then I wanted to do the handles, people to pull on. I mean, it doesn't look like a weight machine you've ever used, but it's a sci-fi weight machine. So there were just things that I thought, I could do it this way, but then that angle was wrong. Whatever I did, it's just very fine. And I've chunked it up a lot, but it still isn't printing properly in certain places. As a Canadian Shield 9mm, 9mm is the scale of my train layout. My group watches your vids, appreciate all the tips and hard work. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I haven't done enough videos recently. Lack of energy. Kaiser Zach, I have a habit of choosing ideas way too far above my ability and then not starting. I have a habit of choosing ideas way above my ability, starting and then running out of oomph partway through. So I wouldn't worry, you are not the only one. The difference with this is, now it's my job, I actually do have to finish them. But, there's quite a lot of shelf queens around, and my past is littered with unfinished projects. I get very excited. So I still have some marble stuff to do, which I want to do and design. When this Kickstarter ends, it's finally finished on probably about the 31st of March, which is my year end, when the financial year end for my company. When the files go out about then, maybe a day or two before, we'll have to see. And with that done, I'm going to take a month off and do some personal projects and try and get some stuff done. I'm probably playing a lot of Satisfactory. Slurgical, RPG is great. I design everything mainly compatible to RPG. I prefer collabs play with skirmish. I mostly lose wargaming. Legion, I'm getting into zombie design. Yeah, I mean, I love the concept of Legion, and for people who want to play it, it's great, but I haven't got the oomph to push for it. Doug, a 17-hour print for a single large piece is horrible. I'd much rather do 3 6-hour prints. Yeah, I mean, these are, I think when I put every single test print on, it was like 12 hours, but at 0.16. But that was when I did every single thing on the plate. And I've got a lot of versions for that. The average person printing would print 1 or 2 versions at most, and that would be it. So it would take, I think, you know, the handles are like 9 minutes to do a set of handles. 6 minutes of that is the get going, you know. Doug says that Ian at Dragon's Rest has some nice terrain for Zombicide. He just does nice terrain generally. Him and Imperial Terrain do some really good stuff. Ravenson, especially when the print fails after 16.5 hours. Yeah, most of my prints don't fail, but this one did spectacularly in quite a few places. And I have got some very iPhone footage of the fails. Because I didn't test print any of these. What I do is always make sure they're printable as I go, but I'll generally put a test print to go overnight, but I just didn't. They will have one multicolour in them, which is the floor tiles, because all my floor tiles have got it, so there is multicolour in them. You could print them in multiple colours, especially just doing a colour change. The gym is black or something, but I just did it in white. Because, you know, hey, why not? Why not do gym with stuff in white? It's a hospital. I probably should. I had black in. I probably should have done black, but I didn't. Now, I'm putting in a mistake here, which I should have realised. And as soon as it printed badly, I knew what I'd done. I've lined up, because, hey, OCD, I lined up the print at the back going up and the bar, and I lined up the bit that comes across in the middle at the top. And what that does, when the print head goes round, so you've got your square and the print head goes across, you hope, and then does this. No, the print head does this to go round that shape, and then it does this. There's nothing supporting this in the middle, so it just does this. It literally just pulls tight, and you end up with a triangle instead of a square. So what I did, and it's in about 10 minutes sped up time, I suspect, after the test prints, is I actually moved one of the bars up by 0.2, 0.4, enough that it's done a couple of layers before it tries doing the second print. So it will print the first one, jump, 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 and then it will print jump, jump, once it's actually got something for it to sit on. And it worked. This isn't perfect, this one, by the end. But as I don't know whether the stretch goal is even going to unlock, I've just put it into snagging. So what I do is everything is printed, test printed, and I'll often put stuff into snagging and just go and sort out the issues and retest print in a batch at some point. So my core set, all test prints, all snagging done. But my stretch goals, I haven't gone through and tweaked out the snagging. And I've got a list of them. And if I look what's in it, it's some of the multicolours. An exterior top I found when I actually looked at a test print putting them together wasn't flat. And then something about extended corners. Okay. 2-inch high modular buildings, modular walls. Yeah, that's another stretch goal. Find multicolour file for waiting room bases. Yeah, that means I didn't do a multicolour file for it. Cleaning droid arms. Oh yeah, I said I'd do some clean droid arms and haven't. Bigger sign base. They stand up, but every now and then they knock over too easily. So I was going to do a second base that was a bit broader, and then a multicolour file for waiting room. Yeah, and that's on twice. And the top of the weights machine is messy. So that basically is how yeah, that's the snags. And those are all stretch goal ones. For some reason, it lost translucent as an option. So when I came to do my multicolour print and to build my rooms, and I came to bring in the stuff from all my various multicolour plates, I hit a snag. So I've got white, blue and translucent as the only colours I've really owned, silver that I've used in this. But depending which machine was loaded depended on the order of the print filaments, because One of them had white on the left and the other had blue on the left. So some of them came in blue as colour number 1, white colour number 2. Some of them came in the other way around. Or actually, because I'd also done a quarantine in red and something else in yellow, it actually came in with, and I had both white loaded at some point for something else, I actually came in with about 20 colours. And when I came to do the multicolour files, every time I brought them in to try and do a room build plate, they'd all just go ballistic on the colours and randomly recolour. So what I ended up doing was going through every single one of my multicolour base, files that I'd done. This would be a multicolour file where I've given someone a 3MF to print with multicolour on. I ended up going through every single one and changing the filament order so they go white, blue, translucent, silver, white, blue, translucent, silver. And I've probably got, way too many of these files. But anyway, I did it. And then I spend quite a lot of time making sure that there's only one change on these, that it goes from blue to white in one layer. And what you'll find is quite often it wants to go a layer lower. So there you can see it sort of coming down a layer. And it would show better if it was actually in colour rather than line type. But as a result, I needed to reorder them all. So my first day of doing room builds was actually, I reordered all in multicolours. Slurgical. It's true, funny about projects, it's like icebergs, only the top get released, but what is underneath is always a resource available that comes handy. Yeah, and you've always got the learning points from them. That's the thing. Loads of learning points. Norm, Kathy, do you have any printed items from this project to show us later after the movie? They're all upstairs and I'm downstairs. The only things downstairs are my arms, because I tidied. Oh, and this isn't on the snagging list, but I'm not happy with the way that prints. So I redid it and I was even less happy. So it's just a bit tight. It's a tolerance thing. It needs an extra 0.1 off. So yeah, you can see now I'm trying to get the colour out. So yeah, get it sorted. I realise that I'm looking on this screen, which is 20 seconds delayed, and then actually this is the screen that will be matched to when I'm talking, so I'm always talking 20 seconds out. But yeah, anyway, I'm trying to get the colour, so the blue and the white are just one single change. So if you want to print and you don't have a multicolour printer, you can do a single change quite easily by hand. You put a pause in the G-code and just swap the filament manually. And I think for these floors, if I'd been able to do that for my lava, which was a nightmare, trying to get the lava down all the holes in the floor was a nightmare. Because paint, acrylic, sort of artist acrylics, don't like to flow to the bottom, and I didn't want to use smelly paints. So I use, also terrain's big, so you want to use cheap paints. They don't flow to the bottom of holes that are quite tight, and these are really tight, so you end up watering them down and then they don't show, and it becomes a nightmare. So this is what I meant by I didn't like the quality of the print of that vertical, which didn't surprise me. I was kind of expecting it. Everything else printed okay-ish, but I had a problem with the back. You see the curve did not print well, and the weight machine has that problem. Thankfully the weights and the punch it will punch me bags fine, but that you can see the triangle cut across on the first layer. Just a lot of errors. But what really did surprise me was every single left hand cross trainer moved. So I went and checked. It is buried in the ground, so it shouldn't have done that, but it's quite narrow. So I was just like, it is buried. So I decided to put a base all the way around, which would make it more solid. It would just have more there, which would help, keep it perhaps more adhered. I did just make it thicker as well. Slurgical. I got the multicolour mainly for tokens for the game I'm designing. Oh, nice. I actually just use it mostly to swap the colour over. So when it runs out in the middle of one of my overnight prints, and I run 24/7 when I'm test printing the main campaign stuff, that it will just happily happily swap over the colours, and it rarely has a problem. Detail is good. Thank you. Thank you. It does look cool with printing the train in multicolour. I haven't attempted that yet. It's a learning curve, let's just say. A definite learning curve on how things work. I've learnt a lot doing these build plates and stuff about what looks good, what doesn't look good. I'm trying to go with as few as possible because it just is very time consuming and wasteful on my printer. So, you know. So yeah, and Doug says single layer change is also much less wasteful with automatic colour changing. Is it? I find that this one layer is fine. You know, I can cope with one extra purge and filament, and they're very low, so it doesn't have much of a prime tower, which is actually the thing that's at the back that prints, which is to prime the nozzle so it gives a better finish when it starts off again. So I ended up redoing this. So this was the day after, and I was just like, oh, I was going to do room build plates today, but no, I'm now tweaking everything to get it to print properly. But this wasn't the last day, so I think this was Wednesday or something. So I tried beveling it. This is going to sound weird. Beveling it up, because then it is a less shallow angle. I wondered if the problem was the angle it was at. But, you know, it didn't print well either. Yeah. Just so many things I wouldn't normally yeah. I feel like I was absolutely on a different planet modelling this. But you can see it's all vertex. If you like CAD, this probably isn't accurate enough for you. Do you use the hard resin to print? No. I use FDM. I have I have 3 resin printers currently actually all plugged in, but I only use FDM because I use resin for minis still, but I just feel that it's much safer. This is much, I mean, I'm printing 24/7. I don't want that fumes from the resin around. So and FDM is just a nicer material to work with generally, I think. So I've had a lot of resin prints cause problems years later. So I did some stuff in resin and FDM for Galactic Races, and I came to a box of stuff to tidy it, and one of mine, which had loads of drain holes in and had been drained and had been washed, had cracked open and leaked like liquid resin everywhere, all over the base of everything else. And it's just foul. And even when you wash and wash and wash, sometimes gravity just takes that resin down. I printed some rankers from Galactic Armory, beautiful. And their hands come down, you know, at the front, and the resin just runs down into it. Wonderful. I knew those knobbles weren't, I don't know why I even bothered printing them. I knew those knobbles weren't going to work because they were bigger than the hole pushing in, and there's no way the push would work and with that size. So eventually I took them off in about another little bit of time. So I'm always intrigued to see how other people design stuff, and you know, something like this needs a flat side. It becomes a really, I don't know, this was not a great thing to print easily in anything other than a springy substance, because you're always going to knock those. Whatever you do, they're going to get knocked and they're going to break or fall out or bend. Even if it was ABS plastic, they'll be quite delicate. And gaming pieces tend to get thrown in a box. So I often over thicken things. And in my modelling for railways, I always underdid things so that things looked finer scale. And then you come to terrain and you actually are going, well, people are just going to put this in a box. And I am in my head thinking at the moment, how am I going to store all this and find it again? Because at the moment I can't find my GridForge stuff. So I'm wondering, I have a lot of bases, I'm wondering about actually printing just some edges to the GridForge bases so I can stack them one on top of the other, because they're all like 2 or 3 inches high, and make myself some like storage that then fits inside my full flat crates. So when I put it out, I can see everything on the GridForge, whereas at the moment they're just loose in a box. I don't know. How do you store your GridForge pieces? Let me know in the chat, because I'm looking for ideas, because I've got like 5 crates of the stuff now. Slurgical, do you find you fix a lot of geometries for 3D printing? No. I modelled so it's right from the start. There'll always be something, especially if you've done a Boolean, that often will generate things. What will happen is I'll take it into Prusa. Prusa will say, oh, black triangle. I'll put it into Blender. Blender will go, no problems. I'll save it out of Blender another time, and then Prusa will go, yeah, no, that's fine. So just bringing it in out of Blender once gets rid of a lot of the black ones. Otherwise, I'll use the 3D print, that's in midair. I'll use the 3D print toolbox to go through and find non-manifold, and I'll just tap make manifold 5 or 6 times. If anything disappears, I'll go through and fix it manually. If nothing disappears, I just fix it using the 3D print toolbox. And I do think it's got better. I think when it first came out, it would just disappear half your model 90% of the time. Whereas now I think it does do it definitely a lot better. So that's good. Doug, delicate parts is why all my second dynasty cockpits have trackballs where they were designed with joysticks. I have trackballs in mine as well. So basically he has these joysticks that are 0.4 like circles or something, or 0.8. They're not 0.8, they must be 0.6. They're really fine, and every time you print they come off, and you just find them there, you've picked it up and it's fallen off. So yeah, I have the same problem. If you make things too fine and they're in a vertical print, then yeah, no problem, Slurgical. So you can see I've got this error where it's gone sideways still, and this is probably just me doing a close-up. I did it in timing of when I did it. So these are the issues that I've hopefully fixed. You can see a lot of bad bridging, a lot of push. Now I wonder whether some of this is the part cooling fan being slightly off. So now I've got the new ones test printing. It's time to go and tweak anything that was causing issues. And in this instance, it was the curves. I decided I was just going to let it bridge, which meant I had to undo all of this. And did I try the bevel first? Oh, yeah. Who knows? Why did I do it? Why? And why is it always on the one that's for the live stream? Anyway, design VR goggles next to controls. Yes. Yeah. Or just some kind of head thing. Or just say you've all got chips in your brains so there's nothing to see. I'm sure we'll all end up with chips in our brains. Was that Johnny Mnemonic or something? Anyway, yeah, I shouldn't have done this. I really should. Yeah, it didn't work. Cool, we're on the same page. I bought what you were using. It was cheaper. Lol. So Doug says, I think that might have been the part pushing the nozzle pushing the start sideways. I'm sure it was, but I suspect, and it's a speed thing, I suspect they needed to be just a little chunkier. It's the 28mm ones that are doing it. The 35mm ones aren't. And this is the problem with, I hate printing anything that has any vertical height that is going to cause any issues. You know, we've all printed the second dynasty landing pads and struggled. So going down to 28mm is just that much harder than modelling in 35mm is what I find. was going to show you some part I had here, but I've obviously tidied it. FDM machines are much cheaper than resin. That's true, Doug, until you add all the AMS stuff on, to a certain extent. But I think it depends what machine you're buying, because if you only want minis, you can buy a really small resin machine, and it's not necessarily much cheaper. FDM. Anyway, FDM I think are safer, so that's one good reason to have them. At this point, just to get rid of any of the extras, I end up going to 5.17 or 5.19 above and just doing a little layer blue, trying to get it. It doesn't always work, and if I can't get rid of it, I end up with these awful modifiers, which are like yellow boxes, which are, when you try and move the part, they're a nightmare. So they are on some of the files, because I couldn't find any other way to do it. So yours wasn't, Doug. That's good. That's good. And then I had to address this. Even though I beveled it, that just did not work. It still got that horrible yuck. And I can look at the weight machine and find some issues on that. So this was a lot more iterations than normal. And sometimes I felt like I was just brain dead. So yeah. So Doug says, if I knew then what I knew now, I'd have bought a bamboo. I wish I'd bought a bamboo earlier, because they have just been so much better. This is me lifting that piece up so it prints after the other one, so the other one's got a chance to bridge a little bit, and then putting a sort of thing on so that it's a little bit of support underneath as it comes out, which didn't work that well. I'm not sure if it hindered or helped, to be honest. But yeah, bamboos have been brilliant. They've been really good. So perfect. You live and learn, and I do think 3D FDM is very much a case of practice and printing. You will find there's people that do a lot of work on other people's models, and fair play. I'm actually really surprised when people achieve what they can off STLs, because they're already triangulated and actually quite hard to manipulate sometimes, but people do amazing work. I know I've had, before I was modelling myself, I would take a lot of game ready assets and make them manifold to print, and that's hard. Yeah. Doug says, I do love my presser though. I've still got my original presser, Mark 3S. It's okay. It won't do translucent. I haven't tried them in the bamboo too much because they keep snapping in the AMS. The only one that would print it was my Elegoo. I really liked my Elegoo Neptune 3 Pros until I started to print matte, and I wore through all of their interiors so much that I needed new extruders on both of them, because everything was just too worn and I couldn't get it to fix with new extruder gears and stuff. So in the end I went to bamboos because it was, time. Canadian Shield 9mm, I'm new to printing, a lot to take in. So there is, I always say, if you want to do big stuff, stuff for playing with children, anything around the house, big pieces, terrain, stuff like that, you want to be in FDM. If you want to do minis, you can do them in FDM, but you're probably better off in resin. So it depends what you're printing. Slogical, I'm happy with the bamboo printers. I had a CR10 and Wanhao, nightmare, but they were amazing at the same time. I think they've come a long way. I mean, people, I look back at my first printer was an Anycubic Photon Mark II, and my first FDM was an Anycubic i3 Mega, which went in the bin. This is me taking the taking the bevel out. Ravenson says, I know my Quiddy X Max 3 big printing size for affordable price. I don't need multicolour printing. I prefer bigger printing area. I would like a bigger printing area, but I think I need to go to the H2C or something for that, or something. They didn't address it with the P2S. So I'm still waiting for a bigger printer, and then I would buy my next printer. I like the idea of having a laser cutter integral with the printer, in that it's just a space issue, but then I've got to vent it. So yeah, wow. Taking stuff out, like you just end up deleting the vertices and rejoining them up, but making sure all the geometry still lines up so you don't end up with weird shapes, which you just do by looking at it from every angle. I just generally don't spend as much time as this on a single model. I have no idea what I was on. Anyway, I recommend the bamboos to anybody getting in. I like the Core XY, which is where I currently am. I just like Core XY printers. My previous ones were all Core XY, which basically means it's got belts around the top and the bed goes up and down rather than the belt moving X and Y. Moving the bed X and Y. No. So rather than the bed moving in the Y, the print head moving in the X and then the bed staying flat. So the bed does the Z and the XY is all off the head. So yeah. Surgical's nice. I haven't touched resin yet. Well, you shouldn't touch it at all. Make sure you wear gloves. That's the main thing. It's pretty noxious stuff really, and it can really stink depending on the brand. So yeah, it's not as nice. Who feels guilty for keeping this expert from her bed, says Jeffrey. I'm sorry. I'm on the mend. Last weekend I was so brain dead by the end of it, and I drove to my dad's. He's 3 hours away on the Friday, and we drove back on the Sunday morning, and yeah, I was so brain dead. It could have been like 12 hours of Satisfactory or something. But yeah, I'm still building my first factory again because I keep changing my mind. Who has played Satisfactory or even heard of it? I know John gets it all day from me. He's also started playing it again. He's played it 5 or 6 times. So it is quite fun chatting about what we're doing. We're about to all build a massive train network. But I look, and I'm on the console because I'm on an Xbox. It's really hard to work out how to do the fine detail stuff that people do in this. Anyway, I'm quite looking forward to making a train. It's not real, I know. It's not real life. It's just digital. But there's some gifted people in every walk of life. So, Ravenson, laser cutting and engraving, you better choose one of the better machines. The engraving quality is much better with an Epilogue laser or a machine from Universal GCC. Yep, but it's size and price and venting, and I can't afford those 3 items. So it comes down to, I'd like to cut. Realistically, all I want to use it for is acrylic signs at the moment. So, but I know if I had one, I'd use it. But I can't do it for anything I design for because I have to design for what the average punter has, and the average punter does not have a laser cutter. Digger, if I was getting a filament printer, would I get the Bamboo Lab? But I just the Mono 7 resin printer now. So yeah, if you were getting the Bamboo, you'd get if you were getting filament, you've got a Bamboo, but you just got the Mono 7 resin printer. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Slurgical, I meant resting printer. I did not touch. English is my second language. I mostly speak English with complete thoughts. That's fine. I had a laser from Trotec some years ago. I miss it, but not Trotec at the moment because of the dealer that still covers my area. Okay. I've heard all about it, says Doug. I bet you have. Oh no, that would be cool for acrylic signs. Yeah, I would love it for doing acrylic walkways, acrylic signs, etching hexagons into things, you know, just that kind of stuff. I tried doing it with translucent print and it's not the same. It's not as clear, but I'm just going to do it with the 3D printer for now. And this is me just getting them vaguely looking curved again. It is a big machine, bless. Trust me, the better machines are worth the high price. Even the working speed and the better laser sources, especially well engraving acrylic, the quality of the laser beam is very important. Yeah, it's just a pipe dream at the moment. If it's integral into a 3D printer and I would be getting that 3D printer anyway, I would add on something to engrave. But given that I am a 3D print designer, I'd love it, but I've never managed to justify the price for what I would use it for. Even when I was a content creator, I wouldn't have justified the price. So now these printed overnight and I left them going, and I will admit the bridging was much better, but it's still quite a long bridge. I find that at the moment, I don't know if it's the mat or if it's this, the machine's been running for a couple of years without a lot of breaks, whether they're just not bridging very well at the moment. 0.08 does not bridge at all on bamboo mat, but it doesn't bridge at all on elegus either. But so 0.08 I struggled with. So where I was doing clip holes, I'd find them really hard to get the clips in if I was printing on 0.08. And I did a whole Kickstarter on 0.08 because I had a lot of curved stuff. I would never do it again. I'd always go to 0.16. It just bridges that a little bit better at twice the thickness of plastic coming out. Because what the problem is, when it's bridging, it's in mid-air. And if it's a really thin stream, sometimes that just breaks. So then it doesn't bridge. So it gets to the next layer and there's nothing underneath and it just goes across and breaks. And it gets to the next layer and it breaks. And suddenly you just end up with this mass underneath, so it looks hideous. Raymondson, better find some companies to buy the laser together. You'll not outlast the machine by your own. Cool. Canadian Shield, my group, we all bought a different kind of printer, 3 types. Mine was half the price of theirs, what I could afford. It is what you can afford. It's that's the beauty of FDM, is that you can do stuff manually and spend a lot of time trying to level your bed and all that. You can get a bamboo, which actually are not that unaffordable for their basic A1 Mini. Yeah, that'd be really good. Doug says, bring on 0G printing. That'll solve our bridging and support problems. I don't know it will solve the problem of the plastic snapping when it's going across at 0.08. Because I think that is a problem to do with plastic flow not being enough to pull a filament across. So, I don't know. But yeah, I would love it if just the tool swapping was better. Because if you can print a layer of PETGA between your PLA, so PETGA doesn't really stick to PLA, but if you can print even just a layer on a normal PLA support, is what some people do. But if you can print that layer, you can put your print right on top of it because it's not going to stick. So you have, at the moment, if you do a support, this is why I do support free, you get a really bad surface quite often. And I could, I wonder if I've got one of these down here. Yeah, this would be an example. This is a supported surface of a marble run that I didn't design, someone else did, because I don't do supports. And it's not a bad surface. It's in silver, so it's hard to see. It's not a bad surface, but it's not a good surface when you compare it to, say, I mean, it's a bit of a weird steppy thing anyway because of the lines, and I did it at 0.16. But yeah, you get this kind of droopiness between, because you have to leave a gap. It's probably more noticeable on this end. So let me see. You see there, all of it's drooped slightly and sagged, and the reason for that is the there's probably some support material still on here as well. Yep. Is that the supports can't be put right next to it, or they'll just melt onto the main thing. So there's a gap, and that gap means the stuff printing above it is effectively printing in mid-air, but it can only droop a little bit before it hits the support, which has had time to cool in that time. And it's had time to cool in that time, so they don't stick as strongly. They stick a little bit, but not too much. Whereas if you print your supports in a different material that doesn't stick to your material, then that's great. At one point there was loads of water-soluble supports touted, so you can just put your design into the water and the supports will disappear off and you're left with the perfect print. So I think when they get that technology fixed with the tool changing so that everybody can print without the waste they've got now, more people would use supports, because every layer, so it's a change every layer to print a support in a different material. If you're doing it just on the top, if you've got a flat piece, fine, it's 1 layer, 2 layers, not too bad. If you've got a curved piece, it could be the entire height of the piece. So I think having that interface layer be a different material with no gap gets a much better finish, but at the expense of a lot of tool changes. Doug says you just need to increase your extrusion. I think maybe, but it's set at the bamboo standards. So you can see there's a little bit of that sagging underneath, but nothing bad on these prints. The weight machine, that was a great shot, Kathy, actually put it in camera. The weight machine needs a little bit more snagging just on the bits underneath. I'll come back and have a look. The 0.3, the 35mm is not too bad, but this one, it did it on 2 test prints, 2 different machines, and it's just too thin. So what I did was I just made that deeper. I made that bigger, which gives it more print. So here we are, snagging version. I don't know. I made these smaller. I actually did come back at one point and flatten them, because here I shrunk them but forgot to flatten them, and I don't think I recorded that video. By that point I was past it. So yeah. But yeah, as Doug says, bring on the Indiex. So the new ones coming along change the nozzle rather than changing the filament. It sounds a bit weird, but it means your filament stays loaded, so you don't have to unload it, purge it, prime it. It becomes a lot better. So yeah, and you can see now that printed much better because it's just bigger, but I've still got some blobs underneath. That's gone in snagging. It was good enough for me to take the photo that I wanted here for the basically for the Kickstarter page, and I can now go through and hopefully sort that weight machine little snag out later. But there we go. That was my horrendous week of redoing this like 100 times. You know, it's probably, normally I just do it, print it, done. Oh, it was a nightmare. So, Rameson, looks more like a torture cabinet instead of something for fitness. I think fitness machines are torture cabinets, so yeah, spot on. Yeah, it's a very like a gym, says Doug. It's logical, that gym is going to look amazing. Yeah, I haven't actually put it out. I've just taken a photo of them like that. But yeah, Polite says fitness students is in fact a torture cabinet. Yeah, I think we're all agreed there. I mean, I like the concept of gyms. I just don't want to go to one. If you like them, fair play. That's good for you. But they're not my favourite thing. So that was an hour and a half. So it was 5 times the speed. I'm normally quite a quick one, but I ended up redoing some stuff many times this time. Just looking at different things that I should have spotted from the get-go. Part of it is just my brain wasn't quite with it. So yeah, so it was a fun one for watching that. But this, you know, this is what I do all day. This is my modelling now. People talk about 3D, taking modelling and making it easier, but what you've done is move your time from a workbench to a desk and computer. And ironically, I had a work studio done, a workshop, and I now spend all my time in my dining room in front of the computers. So yeah. And as Timber says, interesting the difference between Blender and CAD. I think it is very much a thought process difference. Matt says, but people go in there voluntary, maybe they're masochists. Some people enjoy gym. It does apparently give you endorphins, so I'm not going to knock it. So Ben said, this is Ben from Second Dynasty, said, I run out of stuff on to say sometimes on my live stream. I think he said it on one of the live streams, you know, I think he was flagging, and I said to him, I wrote to him afterwards and said, just start talking about classic sci-fi, and you'll soon pass the time, and people will chime in. So whenever I run out of stuff to say, I just do classic sci-fi, and I'm playing Satisfactory instead. So I can't talk about the classic sci-fi I've been watching, except we did start watching Stargate again from the beginning on Amazon. So that's it for this week on the classic sci-fi front. But Stargate is good. It's really good. So fun. So for the next week or two, the Kickstarter ends on Thursday. If you haven't backed and you would like to get it, your chance is closing at the price on the Kickstarter. It does go up in price after that. So, you know, go check it out. The link is in the description. Probably should have put it in chat, but that would have required me to think. But the link's in the description. Go check it out. And yeah, I'm really hoping, I keep meaning to do some more modelling, actual modelling, but somehow the brain isn't catching up with the desires at the moment. So I really miss doing like the Dagobah scene that I did, or the thing. And I look at some of my stuff and I think I'm losing those skills because I'm not using them. And this is a problem. If you don't model for a long time, it becomes really hard. So what I did, and I talked about this last time, was I got a lap tray out so that I was actually still modelling. It doesn't work when I'm playing computer programs, games on the TV instead. But I've got some trays with my modelling. So I'm making up my Legion minis. I've just done the lat, the sort of, it's the one the Coruscant Guard use mostly, and realised that it needs LEDs and that the interior glues inside first, so you can't get it to paint it. So I did it with just simply with enamels and Gundam markers. And then I remember when I was at Telford, someone had raved about these new brushes. So I looked them up, and there's some real colour brushes and some play markers. And one is more like a brush, and I can't remember which one it is which, that goes on, it's quite thin paint, goes on with a brush. And the other is like a pen, but more like a Sharpie, but quite fine, and in loads of different colours. And people review them and say they're good. So I looked at it and I thought, okay, so if I want to paint all these minis, I need to prime them at home. If I want to paint them all, I now have to go and paint them here. And it's painting is something, I have a sea of grey minis and 3D prints that aren't done anyway. So my thing for the next, when I finish Satisfactory and have built a factory and saved the day, my thing then is that I'm actually, for my birthday, which is next week, I'm getting the 2 sets of brushes, which is not a cheap lot, in the hope that when I'm doing it at mum's of an evening, go over, make tea, sit down, watch supper, I can get them out and watch TV, Stargate. I can get them out and actually paint my minis using these brushes to a certain level. And I did do a couple of clones just using Gundam markers, and they're what I would call table ready. You know, they look good at arm's length. They don't look bad up front. I showed John a photo. They don't look bad up front, but you know, they're not excellent by any chance, and they're good, not great. So there we go. That is my sort of thing coming next week, but I've developed it all by playing computer games instead. Show my age by calling them computer games. But anyway, I'm hoping that I can use those to actually then start painting some stuff. Canadian Shield. Yes, I enjoyed all the info. Hope I see you on your next live. Yeah, it's the second Sunday of the month. Doug says, Ben hasn't learnt the lesson you teach about filming his work and talking through the recorded footage. He tries to work and chat at the same time. Oh, nightmare. Did you ever watch Ancient Aliens, Kathy? No, I didn't. Sorry, Stephen. Speaking of that, anyone seen Predator Badlands? Although deviating from canon as a standalone movie, I really enjoyed it. No, but it's out, I think, now, so I can watch it. John says, yes, I enjoyed Badlands. Good fun film. I did watch the previous Prey, or whatever the previous Predator one was. Ravenson says, Timber, when you're interested in CAD, I can maybe show you something via Senf conference call tool. Yeah, cool. Yep, says Norm, good film. Says Timber says, yes, Norm, good film. Timber says, I'm Tim Surf on Facebook. There we go, you can find him. But creativity, you must be fishes. That creativity, you must be fishes. Sorry. Happy early birthday, says Norm. Thank you. Happy birthday early. Mine is on the 14th. Well, I'm actually the 15th, the Ides of March. Polite. Today I saw a video showing a hand with a figure hanging from it on strings, all printed in one piece by FDM. Objects in white, strings in black, flexible, very interesting. Oh, you should look at the suspended spaceships that people do. There's one on MakerWorld and he does suspended ships. And I went to print one till I realised it was a colour change every single layer and not for my machine. But it's really clever how they get them to print the strings. Because if you just did a string against the wall, it would just come out and there'd be like a really weak point. So what they do is actually print they print the string as a cylinder. It's a sort of, 0.4 cylinder. And then they do a slight gap around it, which forces it to do the walls so that the strings are actually bedded into the print a little bit further, which gives it more strength, which is really clever. Anyway, very, very clever. So Norm is on the 23rd. Happy birthday, Norm. Happy birthday. Who was the 14th? I've lost it already. Slurgical. Happy birthday for the 14th. And Stephen says, have a great birthday when it comes. Thanks. It's Mothering Sunday, so I'm not going out on my birthday. Be full of mothers. Slurgical is happy to all the Marchians. Star sign fishes or Pisces, yes it is, but I don't do star signs. So yes, there we go. Oh yeah, I've seen those string ships, very neat. They are, but how they do the string is particularly clever. And I'm geeking out about how someone does a string on a ship, which just shows. I also had to print those sort of fluffy trees which just do the loops. Because I printed them in white and blue. I also thought those were incredibly clever. And I did want to do a potted plant for the waiting room, but never got around to it. So if I have to do another stretch goal, it'll be potted plants for the waiting room. And I'll do some of those string ones. But yeah, they're just very exciting. And I think that's the thing. There's still so much that excites me about what I'm doing. There's still so many things I want to try and learn. And I just feel that, I don't get enough oomph, and so anyway, my aim is to go to bed earlier and get up earlier, which lasts for like 3 days normally before I lose it and go back to going to bed at 11:30 or whatever. But yeah, I definitely think there's so much with 3D printing. I go on MakerWorld because it brings it up when I log into Bamboo, or I just go on MakerWorld, and some of the stuff I see is truly amazing. I printed this. This was actually printables, and it didn't work at first. So this doesn't work very well unless you hold the top down because it isn't glued and I have to jam it. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Oh no, it's not going to work. Here we go. Yeah, okay. It works better on a table. Okay, not working. So I printed this. And yeah, I can put it on the table and it will work really well. It just doesn't work in midair. So this massive thing is really cool. And I just find all these things and print them, and I get very excited about them. Yeah, I'll have to do a video of that or something. But yeah, it's just really exciting what you can do with 3D printing. Put it down. I need to glue it, but it wasn't working. So, right. Oh yeah, so almost bedtime for me, says Stephen. Thanks for taking the time out for us, Kathy. Good night all. Good night. I'm looking forward to my bed too. And then Doug, I want to get up at 4 tomorrow just to start a 17-hour print. When I'm test printing, I'm downstairs as soon as I'm awake, check all the prints. You can get 3 or 4 hours in before anything, go down, check them, check they're all running, check the filament did auto click overnight, which it normally does, but every 2 or 3 months something happens, it doesn't work. Check everything's finished, put a new print on, get an extra few hours in before I'm up. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, definitely the one. So yeah, you're not the only one, but I'm not getting up at 4 to do it, just to be clear. It's nearer 7 or 6, but yeah. I will always go down at 7 and check if I've got a print running. But that's the joy of 3D printing. So I've been trying out loads of other people's prints, just shoving them on the printer and printing them. And it's fascinating to me how hard some of them are to print and how they don't work that well. So I'm really working on my printability, I think, because I want people to just be able to put stuff on and it prints. Oh, Deg says, not permitted overnight printing. Ooh. Oh, mine just runs. Slaves to printing machines, sounds evil. It isn't evil though, it's amazing what you can do. You know, there are people out there who say at some point soon, we're just all going to have a 3D printer and it will be like Star Trek. And I'm like, I don't want it to 3D print my food. But you know, that principle, it'll be amazing what they'll be able to do at some point. So just think of, you know, day-to-day utensils, it will just totally change. Print on demand, totally change everything. So I think that's coming, but yeah, I'll have to wait and see. So thanks guys for coming. I feel like, yeah, it was a bit low energy and I'm sorry about that. But yeah, Max says he has some time-lapse videos from 3D printing on his YouTube channel. Yeah, they look really cool. You need to put them as shorts on something like Instagram or TikTok or whatever you do, because they're always really cool. So, guys, thanks for coming. I know it's been a lot of watching me whiz around in Blender, and I will try and get some actual printing that looks really cool. And, you know, I should probably be showing off my Kickstarter. It's only got a few days left. I should be plugging it more, but I'm too British to market. It will sell for itself, but there we go. So anyway, good night for, oh, Canadian Shield says, my first print is a kitty. It's a good one. Anyway, thanks guys, and I will see you all whenever the second Sunday in April is. It isn't clash with Easter, does it? Anyway, I will see you all in April. Is it April already? Soon. I'll see you all in April. Thanks guys, take care. And thanks to Norm, Digger and Timber for moderating you all. Bye.